I'm going to be speaking a little bit about Office Scripts with Power Automate. I'm one of the PMs on that part of the product, and this may be a little bit of a repeat for anybody who's joined us at the MVP Summit or Build, but I'm going to try to whip through some of this content and give you guys a little bit more of a forum for asking questions. Basically, what we have is an integration for Office Scripts with Power Automate that is going to become imminently available in the next week or two, and kind of consistent with the overall Office Scripts mission of trying to empower everyone to easily automate tasks and run their businesses efficiently anytime and anywhere. The push towards integrating really tightly with Power Automate has been a really core component of our ability to kind of dramatically increase the capabilities of Office Scripts beyond just the bounds of Excel. And it's been a real core part of capturing this top right part of this programmability and Office matrix. Again, this may look familiar to some of you, but the idea that we're going for here is if COM and Office web add-ins kind of cater towards what a lot of you guys may be available or may be familiar with as a developer audience, it has a little bit more of an overhead, definitely is a bit more on the complicated end of the spectrum, and is less likely to be accomplishable by somebody who has more minimal programming experience. Additionally, COM add-ins and VBA are confined only to the desktop. And so what Office Scripts has been filling for us is this sort of area of the solutions marketplace that is more approachable to end users. It's a little bit less overhead to kind of spin up and get started in. You can kind of imagine that this occupies a space similar to what Script Lab does for you guys in a testing capacity, but in a more formal and regularly usable way. And additionally, the web and collaboration part is something that is highly related to this whole Power Automate integration. And we also have a couple additional features around simplified API and script sharing coming out. I'm going to be talking less about those, and there may be some on the call who can address questions in those areas. But the main thing I'm going to be focused on today is running Office Scripts via Power Automate. So again, the goal here is to really help our users to accomplish more with Excel and to interface with a whole bunch of other services beyond just what is offered with Excel alone. And this is going to allow you to really automate a whole bunch of complicated and intricate things that you would not otherwise be able to do, especially so in scenarios where you might need to interface with outside data, interact with other services, etc. And some of these things may be either other Microsoft products like Outlook, Power BI, Teams, even non-Microsoft products like Salesforce, Twitter, and DocuSign. There really are a phenomenally high number of different connectors available on this service, and it dramatically expands the things that Office Scripts is able to accomplish. And one of the things that we've also made a fair bit of effort, or put in a fair bit of effort to accomplish, is we are able to accept parameters and return data. So this really is a full deep integration with Power Automate, where previously the Power Automate Excel connector could accomplish a handful of simple tasks. Again, this is a connector that did exist prior to this new imminently released upcoming feature. You were mostly only able to accomplish things like reading and writing data from a table in an Excel workbook. But as of the moment that this is released, which is going to be sometime very soon, this will actually allow you to accomplish almost any operation that is possible via Office.js Excel. So that is going to be a really, really big deal, and we are really excited to see what people can do with this. Again, it's a little bit more catered towards end users that are not able to build their own add-ins, but I'm actually also kind of interested to hear from you guys as to whether or not you see this as a potential prototyping bench, or even something that you might be able to build your more formal end solutions in. So with that, I'm going to take over the screen share a little bit and try to do a quick demo. Again, I am kind of hedging by apologizing to anybody who has seen this content directly already. as a part of the Q&A section, please feel free to request that I explore something kind of off demo. I'm totally open to trying things out, showing you how things work, because this thing is basically ready to go out the door, and it is ready for you guys to kind of play around with, kick the tires on, and I'm more than happy to do a little bit of that here in this call. What I'm going to be showing you for this particular demo scenario is one of the things that we often saw with some of the customers that we talked to in putting this product together is it actually seems to be a very common thing that our customers want to accomplish, or a very common scenario where some person on a team has some sort of status report or like to-do list or thing that they need multiple team members to go complete within like some given either regular cadence or some given amount of time. And there is a non-trivial time investment necessary to actually track everyone that is responsible for a task on said spreadsheet down and remind them to complete their task area. And in this particular case, I have myself and a fake version of another team member who have not yet completed their status report. And that might take a little bit of time to like get the fake version of our dear friend Frederick to actually complete. But with the addition of Office scripts, this becomes actually a very trivial and automated task. So what I've got here is a script that allows you to basically get all of the people in this table that have not yet completed their report. I'm just going to run it real quick for you and not focus on the actual logic. As you can see here, what's happened is the missing rows values have been highlighted, or the cell has been highlighted, and the output is the actual name of the individual and their email. So again, trying to focus mostly on the Power Automate integration rather than the actual logic. I'm going to take you guys over to Power Automate, and here I can actually go to My Flows. Currently, this is only available as a feature in preview environments. This is what's going to be changing in the next couple of weeks, and it's going to be a production Power Automate set of environments. You do not have to create and set up a special environment in order to access the feature, or you will not. And in creating a brand new flow, I'm just going to make a manual one and add an Excel connector as the first action step. Now, inside this Excel Online for Business connector, which is again something that has previously been available, there is now going to be an additional run script preview action. And by adding this, I can actually find the location of the workbook that I'm interested in targeting. Since this is a demo tenant, it's just kind of top level task reminders workbook. And then I'm going to grab the script that I actually want to run on it. So here I have a get people script, which is again the one that we've just kind of run. And what I'm actually trying to do here is I'm trying to accomplish automating this task of reminding everybody who wants to go or who needs to go fill out this spreadsheet and complete the status report cell to go do so without actually any effort on my part. So you might imagine that this manual trigger will eventually become some kind of like recurrence trigger that happens every couple of like days or weeks, whatever the cadence that you want it to occur on was. And then also we need to add a step for actually sending out an email. So here I think I'm actually going to do Teams card, because that's another like cool integration. Email is fairly trivial, but the gist of what would happen in an email example is you would just grab the send mail Outlook connector. There we go. And then since this get people script outputs an object containing a list of both the person's name and then their email, I can then just select from the dynamic content section the user's email. It knows, Power Automate knows the fact that this email component is actually contained inside a list, and so it's smart enough to add an apply to each block automatically. Then I can say, please update your status, and say hi, name, please, etc. as mentioned, I'm going to do the Teams card version as well. And what that looks like is inside the Microsoft Teams connector, I actually have a whole host of different options, but one of them is I am able to post an adaptive card to a Teams user and wait for a response. So what I can do with this adaptive card block is, firstly, just like the email example, I can select the recipient. It'll automatically add the apply to each section. Then in the message section, this is actually where the contents of the adaptive card need to go. And I need to figure out where I actually put the window that had my adaptive card in it went. So I may do that in the background as we're answering questions, because that's sort of a core component of the adaptive cards approach. But you might imagine the gist here is that there's a JSON blob that defines an adaptive card. Highly recommend checking this out if you haven't yet played around with them. These are what adaptive cards look like. They're defined simply by a JSON blob and rendered by a combination of JavaScript, CSS, etc. They actually work fairly nicely in email as well, and a whole bunch of other different platforms. What I was looking for is there's an adaptive card that I had in a window previously that closed, and the adaptive card designer doesn't exactly keep cards around very nicely. Pick up the file on my desktop that has that, but they play around very nicely with Microsoft Teams as well, and they allow for submission of values and text. And so I have an example that allows you to submit your status report inline via the Teams card without actually leaving Microsoft Teams. And that is what this corresponding save response script does, is it accepts that Teams card, adaptive card response. And then we would basically be adding one more step here in Power Automate that takes the output of this Teams card and maps it back to the Excel spreadsheet, again, through an Office script. So,
all right, yeah, let's, while you look for that, let's answer a couple of questions, both in the chat here and through the question submittal form about integrating Power Automate and Office add-ins. So not necessarily Office scripts, but the add-in component too. So if you could speak to that, I can send you your JSON thing through Teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, I think what the question's asking is whether or not there's going to be some kind of official or explicit integration between add-ins in general and Power Automate. And I'm not 100% sure what the question is going for, specifically because of the fact that there is the option for users to create their own custom connectors in Power Automate. And so if you are an owner of an add-in, building an integration yourself with Power Automate is actually something that would be fairly easy to do for any developer familiar with like APIs in general. I don't really know what the question's looking for with regard to a specific one, but hopefully that gives some context.
Yeah, I think we can, there is no like add-in in particular integration, but there is a broader, like you can make a custom connector for a service, much like how Trello has both an add-in and a connector or Automate. You can make a corollary thing for your add-in. Would that be accurate to say, Danny?
Definitely.
Hey, Alex, Danny, I think there was a follow-up note on that question, which was around, the scenario was around refreshing data or having your script call a data refresh operation that your add-in would go and fetch new data on. I think, at least from the add-ins, the Excel add-ins perspective, just off the top of my head, one thing you could potentially do is use Excel's calculation engine to do a refresh. So let's say you are doing custom functions and you're bringing in data from your backend through a JavaScript custom function. You could create a script that really just opens the workbook and recalculates it on some sort of demand, so to speak, I think. So
yeah,
that's
absolutely
one thing to try to check out.
Yeah, so we have not yet very deeply explored integrations between add-ins and Office scripts. That's actually something we'd be interested to hear more from you guys on, about like interest in that sort of integration and like what possible scenarios you might think of. But Carrie, your example is an excellent one. That is absolutely something we might imagine people doing someday. And at the moment, you can kind of do so in an informal way where you like recommend users creating an Office script / Power Automate combo to like do a particular thing on a regular basis. You might even be able to do so with a little bit of acrobatics on your part programmatically, as Power Automate does have a set of like management APIs that allow you to on the fly create flow either for yourself or on behalf of a user. That said, they're definitely not that like tightly integrated at the moment, and it's something that we might be interested in changing in the future and improving.
Awesome. Thank you, Daniel.
Does that answer what you're going for?
Yeah. Thanks.
Beautiful.
So Daniel, in your teams, there is the JSON for the example. And while you're plugging that into the adaptive card in your flow, there were a lot of questions around Blazor in the chat. And Kara, I don't know if that was addressed or not, or if you'd like to speak to that sort of support.
So I think for the moment, our team's focused on building some great experiences using Office JavaScript. And so what I would say for Blazor is we hear you. I think it's really cool technology. And the best way to voice your need for that is on our user voice channel. But I don't think we have any imminent plans for Blazor support.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So Daniel, now that we got the adaptive card, want to talk to it?
All right. So Alex helped me out behind the scenes. Thank you very much, and was able to locate my corresponding JSON. So what I was actually going for originally is, as you can see right here in the designer, there is a update your status report card, and it's kind of a mock-up of what it might look like from a bot sending it in Teams. And what's actually going to happen is the Microsoft Flow bot is going to send this card on our behalf, but like under its own kind of like bot account to whoever we actually indicate by email in this Teams Flow connector. So again, here this thing is defined entirely by JSON. We can do some fancy things if we want to by like modifying the message to include the person's name. That is all kind of up to us, and we can do that right here. So what I've done is I've pasted this JSON blob directly into the message field of the Teams connector. And there doesn't actually need to be any real modification unless like we feel like we want it. That type of modification might look like, again, hi, person's name. But really beyond typing in hi, person's name, or adding whatever dynamic field you actually want to, all that's required is simply this email dynamic field object and the JSON blob defining the card. Here I'm also going to modify the like update message to say thanks for your response. And then should update card is going to say yes, because this is the question of whether or not after submission of some kind of info via the card, should you change the appearance of it or should you allow more submissions later? In advanced options, I'm going to say, yes, I want it to be an alert because I want it to ping and spam the person until such time as they actually have completed their report. That's part of the value here. I don't have to be the bad guy. The flow bot can be the bad guy on my behalf. And here, I'm actually not going to leave a summary because since I don't leave a summary, it's actually going to take the text and give like the short version in, for example, like a Teams ping pop-up in your top right. So with that, I think there's only one more step that we need, which is inside the apply to each. I want to make sure to add an action that says call the run script action again from the Teams card, or using the Teams card response, target the same workbook, just in my OneDrive for Business in the top level, task reminders. And then this time, rather than running the get people script, I'm actually going to run the save response script. And this is a good example here of a script that can actually accept parameter values. So where the previous script returned an array of people, this one actually does not return a value and instead accepts values as its parameters before running. So here we know that the sender is going to be the person with the corresponding email from the Teams card, I'm actually gonna, just to make sure that there isn't anything that might get out of sync, try to use the output of the Teams card, which is lagging on me a little bit. But we can grab the output of the previous action from this Teams card here and use the user from that Teams card and then the message response normally. So I'm gonna stop trying to like mess with this demo because clearly I didn't take the requisite time to set it up. So I apologize to you guys on your behalf that you can't see this right in this moment. But I actually encourage you in the next week or two to go play around with it yourselves, because whenever I figure out what silly thing I'm doing right here that's causing it to fail, whenever I figure out what that is, it's going to work beautifully. Like, this has actually been something that we are actively using on our team in multiple places and across a couple of other teams like Microsoft Edge to like handle status report updates, send out like email reports automatically, like ping people across like 100-person teams. Like, this really is something that is actually impressively robust and like serves us very well in a number of different real business case applications. So I'm gonna like hold off on this and stop trying to be optimistic about like finagling this demo into working. Alex, I do very much appreciate you digging this up and giving everyone a chance to see what this actually would have looked like if I was able to figure out the one thing that I just missed as a step.
For sure. Yeah, here, let me share something. So thank you, Danny, for that demo and presentation. This sample of automated task reminders through Power Automate and Office Scripts will be on our Office Scripts documentation. Once the Power Automate feature or connector goes live, you can follow along with these setup instructions. Here's the script that Danny ran to get all the data and then to add it back to the workbook. We have that JSON for the adaptive card, and you can kind of follow along to see how to make your Power Automate in this sort of long form tutorial sample. Here's what it would look like. So yeah, we encourage you to check that out. I'll put a link to the documentation in the call, and that sample will be live with Power Automate, so in a couple weeks.